Howdy all of you delicious people, I'm here today to review Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, Season 1, Episode 3. So, with this episode, it really rides on one character just kind of showing up in this episode, because there's nothing else going on. At first, this episode was, really intriguing, there's some interesting things going on, possibly going to play out. But then we go into this episode and, really, besides a fight scene that goes on into this episode, a whole entire episode is riding on a fight scene. And, that's about it. There's nothing else intriguing going on in this episode, which is just kind of deflating because of how, I was like, man, this is a pretty good show. There's something about this we can kind of have fun with. But yeah, now we're getting into almost dragon-like territory, to where we're just going on and just kind of slowing this show up to a crawl, where now these episodes are only 40 minutes long, and I'm like, yeah, because they really don't have anything to give to you. Already, we're already just let's pump the brakes a little bit, because we ain't got on this show. So we have both Ben and both Leia who are to arrive off this cargo port ship to arrive with being forced to make it to this planet called Mapuzo that is to be this mining planet. So we have it to where both Ben and Leia are just walking their way through this planet to hope that they can make to a specific location where they're going to be met by someone that's going to help them. But in all actuality, when Ben and Leia make it to that exact location, no one's there. And so we then have both Ben and both Leia having to forcibly just go on and find their way through this planet, which eventually finds them to a person that can take them and hide them away to eventually get them to a underground tunnel-like thing to get them to a certain part of a city where we go on and hope that they can go and possibly find another Jedi or another friend of theirs, because of course we have a Jedi reference within this episode that is to possibly tell us that there is another Jedi coming at some point, and I would naturally assume it's probably either one of two people. It's either the Jedi of which that Ben was to rattle off in this episode, or I just have this weird feeling, and I'm not quite sure that eventually this will pay out or not, but Mace Windu. Mace Windu. Wouldn't it be cool if we had a cameo by Mace Windu within this show? Because I just feel like Mace is not dead. There is going to be some kind of something maybe possibly involving Mace in the show. And wouldn't that just be a cool little thing to possibly either transition between a season 2 or something? But to also have it to where Mace can possibly get his revenge upon Anakin because of the whole lobbing of the hand thing, that would be pretty sweet. And plus also, Ewan at one point in one interview was to talk about Samuel Jackson and how he was to go on and want a purple lightsaber in an interview recently. So it's like, okay, why did he mention that? Why did he bring that up? Going on, kind of throwing some feelers out there to possibly have at some point Mace on the show, maybe? I don't know. We're just kind of putting feelers out there, but who knows? So, really, if in the last episode, I was thinking that we were not going to get Darth Vader within the show, or we would probably get him on the very last episode. Come to find out, I was luckily incorrect, because really I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool to have Darth Vader? But I'm thinking we're not really gonna get it. But come around and just have us be that, like, technically, we do get something of that effect in this episode, and I'll go into it in spoilers because I don't want to ruin anything for anybody. But yeah, we're getting some fun Star Wars stuff, but it's in an episode that is a slog of an episode to watch. So yeah, like, that's how I just feel about this episode. So with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into spoilers about this one. Let's double fire this bad boy up, because it's about that time to just otherwise say it's about Kenobi time. Kenobi time. It's about that time again to, Kenobi. I don't know. I messed up the whole spoiler time thing. I just was like goofy, whatever, doing whatever. So, like I said, we have Ben and Leia who are in a planet called Mapuzo. And so we have both of them that are to be forced to travel their way to Mapuzo. And we have Ben who's on this ship desperately still calling out for his master, Qui-Gon. And within Ben going and trying to channel his former master, he is consistently getting Reva within his brain, and that whole remembrance of possible Anakin, and that he's still alive. So we have Ben that cannot channel his master yet again. I wonder why. Towards the end of the show at some point, probably, we're going to get a cameo from Liam Neeson? I don't know, probably not. Or if he does show up, it'll probably just be a voiceover thing and a CGI, whatever, and, like, we won't actually get legitimate Qui-Gon, but still, it's better than nothing. So we have been going back and talking with Leia, and Leia is to ask if this ship can go any faster, and Ben is like, no, like, this is on a certain kind of like autopilot kind of thing to go to this location. There's nothing we can do. And so Leia is just like, well, can't you just use your force power to just make this go faster? And Ben is like, well, like, it doesn't work that way. And so I kind of think that this is kind of cool, because we have to explain in common terms what the Force actually is to possibly a Jedi. And so we have Leia wanting to know technically what the Force can be. And, like, kind of the way that Ben explains it here, it kind of feels like a safety blanket, or it kind of feels like if you were to be like a kind of acrobatic kind of character, like the Force is kind of like a safety net. And, like, they say something differently here. Like, they kind of, like, the Force just kind of makes you feel safe and all, like, snug in your little power of sorts, your midichlorians, I guess. And that's how they kind of explain it. Like, the Force just is to protect you or make you feel safe. So we go on and we have both Leia and Ben who make it to Mapuzo. What an interesting planet for a name. So both Leia and Ben are making it to this location, and so Ben is telling Leia that her name is to be Luma and his name is to be something else, and that Ben is to tell Leia that she is to not say a single word because she can't talk. And Leia's like, well, like, okay, sure. So the funny thing of it is we're telling the wrong person not to talk, because this is frickin' Princess Leia we're talking about here. Like, this isn't going to be a person who's going to be quiet. We just don't have that built up in Princess Leia. But also, we again have it to where at some points where Ben is still comparing Leia to Padme, and we even have it at one point where Leia is asking, like, well, like, Obi-Wan, are you my real dad? And Ben is like, no, I'm not. But uh eventually he does not tell her who her real dad is, because otherwise Leia would be working for the Empire. That's a spin-off that I want to see. I want to see like a what if kind of Star Wars edition. What if Leia knew that her father was Darth Vader and she would go on and work for the Empire, but Luke would eventually still become this Jedi, and like we'd have to have like brother against sister and any interesting battles and whatever. Because eventually Leia would have Force powers anyways, so I don't know. We could do a bunch of what if stuff. What if what if the stranger was to eventually retrieve both Ben and Leia at the point of which that they were supposed to get retrieved at? Man, this story would have been heavily changed forever. So, but anyways, both Ben and Leia are to make it to this location that they're supposed to be held off at, and Haja was to, of course, uh, like give them a reason to trust him, but excuse me, come to find out, this person was not at this location, and so instead we have a speeder trucker that arrives, a guy named Freck, who is to go on and want to pick both of these characters up. And he is to also, of course, work for the Empire, because we have Ben who's realizing the Empire logo. So we have it to where Freck is making his way to the same exact location that these people are going on and saying that they're going to go to. So Freck is to also pick up some stormtroopers, and it seems that the stormtroopers start asking Ben and Leia all these questions. And so all of a sudden, we have at one point where Ben is to let it slip that he ends up calling Leia Leia instead of Leia Luma. And so the stormtroopers are going on and saying, like, well, hey, wait a minute. Like, didn't you just call her Leia? And Ben is to go on and tell them, like, well, hey, like, I just get so forgetful because this girl is so much like her mother, and her mother was named Leia, and I just get confused. And the stormtroopers are like, oh, okay, all right, well, like, just kind of keep an eye out for any Jedi or anything like that. We're kind of looking for somebody. And I was just kind of waiting for these aren't the droids you're looking for kind of thing. But again, like, Ben doesn't normally use his force powers all that much, so like he can't be reliant on them to eventually work. And plus, there's too many stormtroopers. Eventually, he can't Jedi trick all of them. So eventually, we get to have also where Reva is to make it to this Empire outpost with a number of different stormtroopers and all kinds of characters, of which Reva is to go on and speak with Darth Vader, because Darth Vader is to finally put his black suit on and get out of the Bacta tank, and eventually go on and talk to Reva in full Darth Vader gear, which is really cool. So we have Darth Vader that goes on and talks to Reva, and is to tell her, it's like, well, hey, like, I get like the Grand Inquisitor is dead, and so eventually if you go on and if you capture Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, I'm going to go on and give that Grand Inquisitor position to you. So Reva is to go on and talk to the other brothers and sisters, and we have some arguments going on between them, like the fourth and the fifth are kind of bickering with Reva, and we just kind of have some dissension in the ranks because everybody is to want to go on and get not exactly credit, but like they don't want somebody else to get credit over them. Because they feel like they're going to get certain positions and they don't want anybody kind of stepping on anyone's toes here. So eventually we have it to where uh, we have the fifth brother who is going on and mentioning that Reva will get what she deserves as well as he will. And Reva's like, well, yeah, I hope so. So we go on, and so Obi-Wan is to eventually go to this one kind of roadblock where the stormtroopers are wanting to kind of look into this speeder trucker, and the actual person that actually does Freck in the show is actually Zach Braff, who of course a lot of people will know him from the recent commercials, where him and the other guy from Scrubs are kind of doing these commercials lately, and as well as also he was on like he was on Moonshot recently, as the kind of the rich guy. But yeah, it's like Zach Braff goes on and does like mostly commercials recently. So if you want to go and check out who Zach Braff is, then go ahead. So, because I immediately thought that this voice was kind of familiar, and I went on and tried to figure out who it was, and it was Zach Braff. So we go on, and we have the stormtroopers get out of the speeder truck, and so all of a sudden, Freck is to tell this stormtrooper that he is to have found some unsavory people, and Freck wants this stormtrooper to check him out. So we go on and we have these stormtroopers who brings this probe along to now have Obi-Wan's face scanned. So Obi-Wan now has to go on and defend himself with this blaster and this lightsaber, and slice up some of these probes. But it seems that this probe was sent just in time to go on and give the dark side a message that Obi-Wan Kenobi is on this planet. So Darth Vader personally is going to see that Kenobi is on this planet himself and try to take him out, which was really a cool, like a sweet battle. But the thing of it is like Kenobi is just very weak. So it just kind of sucks that like we just don't have Kenobi like at his prime or at his best. Like we have it to where he's just kind of a very like already defeated Kenobi that really has to go on and try to go up against Vader, and he's nowhere near the power set now of Darth Vader, and Darth Vader is to be even more skilled than he was before. So we go on and we have Ben, who is taking down this this kind of this little gate that's made out of lasers so they can go through to make it into this mining town. So we have both Kenobi and we have both Leia that are kind of hiding out in this mining town, and we go on and have it to where one of these people in this Imperial kind of soldier-looking gear is to have gone on and shot some of the stormtroopers to protect both Ben and Leia. And this girl is Tala. Tala is to go on and be like the friend that Ben and Leia need, so that way she can give them safe passage through these kind of underground tunnels or something like that to save them from having them being found out by either Vader or a number of other Inquisitors or whoever. So we go on and we have Tala that takes Ben and Leia into this kind of hidden room inside of this kind of loader room where there's a bunch of like there's a Ned B bot, and we also had it to where Ben was to fix the Lola robot because I guess it was broken from the last episode, and he went on and fixed it and gave it back to Lola. And so Leia is talking to Ned B about this Lola robot, and so Ned B, I guess, can't understand or can't go on and really like know what anyone is really talking about because he's just a loader droid. So we have Ben, Tala, and Leia who are hiding out in this one room, and come to find out we have Kenobi who's seeing all of this kind of scribbles upon this wall, and he is to go on reference a Jedi called Quinlan, who I guess is another Jedi that is to actually have been at some point in the animated series. So, and eventually you'll actually see him in the animated series, so like there's a connection there. So, and plus I guess he's also in the comic books also, because Google search works wonders. So, we go on and we have Tala that's telling both these two that eventually they're going to be sent to a safe haven place for them to get relocated so that way they can be safe. And so what ends up happening is we start to have stormtroopers looking through this mining town to start questioning if they were to see Kenobi or anybody else. And so the stormtroopers are asking this loader, Ned B, if he has seen anything, and this robot does not respond, but he has some axe in the back of his body, just kind of holding tight just in case he has to go on and kill anybody. So the stormtroopers are to walk off, and so we have Ben and Leia who kind of are waiting to kind of look out at what's going on in this town, and Lord Vader is to show up. He's showing up, and he's starting to murder and kill people. He's like force choking people, he's slamming people on against walls, killing like a villain. And I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. Man, if only we can get some more of that Vader. But we go on and we have Ben that is telling Leia to go with Tala, while Ben is just wanting to see what right now Darth Vader is doing, because Ben is just kind of trembling with fear by looking at Darth Vader and seeing what all he's doing. So Leia and Tala go on their own, and so Ben is to finally go on and have to face Darth Vader, because we have it, of course, where they can both sense one another, they can sense their presence. And so now we have this kind of fight out where Darth is far too strong, and so Ben at some points is to try to use these tricks to try to get away from Darth or Vader. He goes on at some points and is to kind of use this kind of smoke screen to hide where he is. Vader is to try to go on and like say that he's been waiting for this battle for a very long time, and he's eventually going to get even with Ben for what Ben had done to Vader, or technically Anakin at that point. So we go on and these guys are slugging it out, and so we have this one cool moment where Vader is to put this kind of part of this ground on fire and then drag Ben through this very hot ground that at some points is on fire, and Ben is kind of burning up and getting really hurt here, really burnt, to even up the score from Vader having to have lost like most of his body by simply Ben having the high ground. So we have Vader that is kind of slipping and sliding Ben through this fire, and so we now have Vader wanting these stormtroopers to retrieve Ben, so that way they can go on and finally kill him. And so Tala ends up shooting one of the stormtroopers, and then like setting this location more on fire to where Vader cannot get to Ben or any of the stormtroopers. So Tala ends up taking Ben and scrambling the heck out of there, so they can go on and run to safety. So really, that's just how this episode is to just kind of play out, with Ben being no match for Vader. And so eventually we're going to just see how all of this plays out in the end. So with that said, I think I'm just going to get out of here because I think I quickly covered everything. And also at the end of the day, it's cool to just have a really short episode of me just reviewing something, because also I'm going to go on and possibly do some other maybe shows or something like that for this day. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.